Hi, it's Paul Arnold here, studying professor. Just want to review with you today the Chimp paradox, which is one of those, like, it's really deep and dense, and there's lots of really good stuff in this. And for anyone who's done any work in personal development, I've done a lot of it, it really is trying to capture a heck of a lot of stuff within here. And the principle of the book is, as you can guess, by calling it the Chimp paradox, there are three parts who we are. We have got, the chimp part, which is our emotional part, which is very much linked into the limbic part of the brain. We've then got the human part, which are very rational, our Spock type world. And then we've got the computer part, which is the unconscious program that runs 90% of what we do most of the time. So the book really focuses a lot upon the chimp part upon us, because that's the bit which is a bit more out of control and is much more difficult to go and sort of look after. And they use the metaphor of, it's a bit like a child who is your responsibility, who, you have to somehow tame and to actually control. Now, the chimp is very much the emotional part, and in many ways, it doesn't make decisions out of rationality. It makes out decisions emotionally. It reacts just like that, well before the human part can actually fully process the full consequences. It's gone and it's done what it needs to go and do. And it's very sensitive, it's neurotic, it's paranoid, it still thinks it's in the jungle, it sees things as being dangerous and as a threat, and can often overreact and to misjudge things, well before you've fully assessed properly. And therefore it can do behaviours that are often not thinking through what the full consequences are. And we're living in a world of massive knife crime, and there's a classic case of where people feel dissed and they don't even think about what the consequences are. They've just got to make that instant thrust of the knife. And actually, the chimp likes praise and it loves sort of carrots and, big carrots. It hates sticks. It doesn't react well to actually sticks. And it very much lives in a world of sort of havings, whilst the human is much more at a sort of higher aesthetic level of the being level. The chimp can easily be satisfied with just actually getting more and buying more things and things like this. When actually we know that actually the buying of stuff is a very short term and doesn't fully satisfy us at all. It's very selfish. And actually, the chimp part of us actually loves order and loves things to be, certain, and doesn't like disorder and doesn't react particularly well to anxiety. And, the book goes on to talk a lot about how you try to manage the chimp. And in many ways, one of the key things it talks about is how you've got to break this sense of emotion from action, because the action is what you've got to stop and to allow ourselves to get this stuff out. And it comes up with lots of different sort of 5 stages, 7 stages, 3 stages of things like that. So we'll go through a couple of them. There's like a 3-stage thing. Is you've got to sort of exercise out what the problem is. And then you've got to box it. So once it's like expel this energy and this, then as such you can then rashly talk to it and make it be more sensible, get it back into its box. Then as such it likes bananas, so it likes reward. So, reward is much preferred for sort of separating that stuff. And actually, they talk a lot about this, about distractions, about distracting it. So therefore, you change its focus away from things. Has a 7-step process to actually manage the stress and the anxiety that many people go through. So this idea about recognize it when it comes up, pause, push the pause button, don't react. Escape if you can from the situation to allow yourself to not get caught up into what's going on right there. Then to take this helicopter view about seeing it within the proper context of like, this isn't the end of the world. In 6 months' time, you'll have forgotten about it. There are bigger things going on. So get it into some reality. Then to have a plan. A lot of this idea about recognizing your locus of control. What can you control? What can't you control? And stop trying to control the uncontrollable. And this idea of what can I do? You can't control other people. What can you do is the most important thing. Then have a set of action, monitor your action. Is it getting to where you're going to? If not, shift, change, adapt it. And smile. This lovely sort of Monty Python is about sort of try and see the lighter side of the whole situation. Talks another model about AMP, which is accept the situation, move on. A lot of this stuff about letting go. They love a lovely principle of this. A chimp will put his hand into a jar and will try to take something out, but because it keeps their hand clenched, it can't get out through the bottleneck. And this idea about you've got to learn to let go and let go of stuff, because we're holding on to too much stuff which is totally irrelevant and is not important. So learn to let go. And the last thing is to plan your action. We've got another model, lots of them, neat. This idea about it's normal to have these emotional reactions and to expect them and to then accept we're not perfect, but at the same time is to actually, plan and this idea and to sort of have a sort of an acceptance of pushing for excellence. And then sort of, talks a lot about the computer as well. That computers, there's this underlying sort of program we have, has bugs in, which they call the sort of the gremlins and the goblins. And this idea of the belief systems that we have programmed in from a very young age about what we think, leads us to be safe or to be acknowledged and to work out that some of those are not quite right. So the book, my criticism is a lot of this stuff is really difficult to go and do, and to really control to think you just talk to it and it can control the chimp inside of us is really difficult. And psychotherapists are going to be going on for years, so it won't be solved in one book by reading this stuff. But I think it's a very good start and full of very good advice. One of the things is I didn't like, it's almost like the chimp suggests it's a different part of you and you can push it to one side, and I don't like that. I think actually we've got to own our chimp and accept that it's part of us. So anyway, good book, well worthwhile reading, very dense. Anyway, have a look at my online summary of it. It's a long one. It's 21 pages. I couldn't get it down, because it's very rich stuff, but well worthwhile having a read. So look at that. Look at my other stuff online. Anyway, thanks for listening.